Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to
Talking with the Thompsons.
Woo
Woo. We're so weird.
Anyway.
All right. Welcome to Talking with the Thompsons. I'm here with my beautiful wife, Rose Thompson. Andre Thompson here. And we're here to talk and chat with you. What is our topic today, baby girl?
Ooh, today we got some juicy stuff. We got well, let's start by saying we are going to be talking a little bit, well, at least I am going to be talking a little bit more about trauma and the impacts of trauma over the next couple of weeks, maybe months. I don't know however long it's going to take, but so I figured it would be really good for us to share some of the things that we've been through. One of the topics that I really wanted to start with was in our first year of our relationship when we got robbed at gunpoint.
Oh, that one.
Yes.
That one. I was like, where are we going to start? Yeah. We have a lot of things.
There's a lot.
Yeah, we've been through.
But we'll start, I mean, there was more that happened before that, but we'll start within that first year at our first apartment together. When we were first living together and we got robbed at gunpoint. I just kind of wanted to share with everybody what happened, like what our experiences were, and then you know, kind of touch up on some things that we did to overcome some of that, and how that trauma has even affected us to today. So some of the things I wanted to discuss today.
Great topics.
Yeah.
Deep as usual.
Yeah, deep.
All right. So since you're the storyteller of this relationship, or not even a storyteller, you recall events very accurately and describe them very descriptively, more than I do. So go ahead and share it with everyone.
Okay.
Tag on.
All right, so I'll put a snapshot of kind of what happened. So it was our first year together. We were living in our first apartment. We were kind of working opposite shifts in a way. Like you were working all day, but I was working second shift.
Yes.
So I didn't get out of work until like 11 o'clock at night. And you would stay with me at work because I was there by myself at night. Mm-hmm. And then we would come home together. Yeah. And we drove home together. And I parked on the street because we only had one parking spot in the back. Yeah. So I parked in the street, and then I went and I got the mail in the front. Yeah. And I got in the car. And unfortunately, we were bickering a little bit back and forth, and I don't think we were exactly paying attention or as alert and as aware as maybe we should have been. But I got in the car right at the corner of the alley. Yes. and you pulled up, and it was just maybe 20 or 30 feet into the alley. Mm-hmm. And then it was like the little parking lot, and every apartment had like one parking spot back there. So yes. We parked in our parking spot, and before we even got a chance to get out of the car or do anything, because we were kind of bickering back and forth, your door got ripped open.
Yes, it did.
So if you want to take over from there, like what, I mean, your door got ripped open.
Okay, I definitely go from there. Well, I'm sitting there, I remember I was sitting there talking with her, well, we're bickering back and forth, and I was about to say something, and my door just flew open. So instinctively, I guess my male testosterone kicked in, and I jumped out the car aggressively because someone ripped my door open aggressively, and when I jumped out, there was a gun to my face, so I calmed down. I settled down and was like, okay, no problem. We can do this in peace. Mm-hmm. And I slowly sat back in the vehicle as he had the gun on my face and asked us for money. Yes,
he said verbatim, well, I'm not going to say verbatim because he was cussing, but he verbatim basically said, give me everything you have.
Yes.
And unfortunately for him and for us, that was nothing. Back then, we were in our first year of our relationship. I was 18. He was, freshly 21. We had our first apartment. We had no money. We had nothing to offer him. So I grabbed my purse, which was in front of me on the floor.
Yes, you did.
And I grabbed my wallet, and I was trying to take out, I had $10 in quarters because I was doing laundry the next day. It was our day off. And I was doing laundry the next day, so I had $10 in quarters, so I was trying to dump the quarters out.
I remember.
Give it to him. He didn't have interest in my quarters.
No, he didn't.
No.
And interestingly, I normally have my wallet in my back pocket. Something happened where I put the wallet in my center console.
Yes.
But somehow when a gun is to your face, Your brain goes blank. So I reached for my back pocket. I was like, where did my wallet go? Someone stole my wallet before this person got my wallet. I'd rather this thief get my wallet than whoever took it before.
Right,
I
because
thought
this thief had a gun to our face. We don't know if he's going to pull the trigger. We don't know what's going to happen. And we're trapped in the car, right?
Yes, you were.
We have nowhere to go.
Yes, I remember thinking, man, the only time in my life I've lost my wallet is the time I need my wallet for my life, and I could not find it. Did not remember it was in the center console. I remember looking over at you, and I was like, okay, she has her purse, so we have some hope here, because she knows she probably has some money in her purse, and you picked up your purse. She picked up her purse, y'all, and then she was shaking so much.
Oh my gosh, it was
that
so
she
bad.
dropped the purse 3 times as she's getting more and more angry. Then she reached in after about, it felt like 20 minutes, but I know it's probably 2 minutes.
It was probably not even. It was probably 30 seconds, but it felt like forever.
Dropping the purse 3 times, and then taking out your wallet, shaking, trying to get the quarter out, and all the quarters are falling through your fingers. You're not even holding the quarters. I'm like, we're dead.
Yeah, we're dead.
We're dead people.
I thought we were dead. I was like, for sure we're dead.
So I got this clever idea. I was like, why are we sitting here trying to give him specific things? I was like, here's a purse. Take the entire thing.
Yeah, so he handed him my entire purse.
Like, let's take it all. Let's take everything.
This
way you can go through and decide what you want and what you don't want.
Yeah, you take whatever you want out of it. So he just grabbed the whole purse, threw my wallet in it, and handed it to him. Fortunately, but also unfortunately, he didn't take it. He swatted it out of Andre's hand because he wasn't interested in
what was in it. I guess he saw
he heard the quarters, I'm sure, so like, there's nothing in here. And we had nothing. I mean, we literally had nothing to give him. So, and we were, I want to say we were very blessed and very, very covered that night, because we had nothing to offer him. We had nothing to buy our lives with that night. I mean, I didn't even have the promise ring that you gave me because I didn't wear it to work yet.
It was inside the apartment.
It was inside the apartment, and so was our rent money.
Yes, I know.
Our rent money was inside the apartment because we were going to pay our rent the next day as well. And so we had nothing with us to buy our lives, and so we both kind of thought in that moment, like, we're definitely gonna die. And I remember very detailed.
Yeah.
I remember the silver gun with the black sides.
Yes, yeah, the black sides. I know. I got a close range view. I was like, man, this is a nice gun.
I remember, and a part that I really want to talk about here is it was one of the moments that I realized that Andre was the person for me. We were about 8 or 9 months into our relationship when this happened. I said it was in the first year. It was about 8 or 9 months into our relationship when this happened. And every time the robber went to move the gun and turn it, like, to put it towards me, because we were sitting next to each other like this, so the gun was like to his face.
It was on my face right here. It was like right
and I was like on the other side of him as the passenger, and so like every time I was like fumbling and like just a hot mess, the guy would like move the gun off of his face and like start to point it towards me, and Andre would kind of shift his body in the way of the gun and me, so the guy would put the gun back on him, so that. And it just showed me so much, because he put his life up. We were only seeing each other for 8 months at this point, and he put his life on the line for me. He didn't think. He didn't, like, there was no second thought. It was instinctive to cover me and make sure that I was protected. So that was huge for me in that moment. Something I didn't even recognize on a serious level until years later. But I mean, I realized it right away, but like on the in-depth scale that we realized what really happened to us and what really was happening in that moment, and to see you step up like that, it was huge. It was major in the foundation of our relationship and starting our relationship off right. So thank you.
No, I was committed.
For that.
I mean, I would say I agree with you. Like, in that moment, I wasn't thinking about, well, I'm covering her. I'm just doing instinctively, I guess, what God made me to do is to protect the person He's entrusted, I guess, me with. Not saying I own you, but I'm saying, though, He called the man to protect his wife and to provide for her. So at that moment, I'd rather the gun be on myself, because I don't know if I'm bulletproof or not, even though at the time, but I felt more comfortable that way. Yeah. I felt like the situation was more in control if the gun was on me than it was on you at that point. And you were fumbling with the purse.
I was a hot mess. I was so bad. So let's carry on the story from here, I guess. Basically, we had nothing to offer. Andre tried to give him my purse. He wanted nothing to do with it. He kind of swatted it out of Andre's hand. And I mean, he said something, I don't know, maybe curse or something.
Well, of course, he was cursing quite a bit.
But he ran off. Thankfully, he ran off and kind of ran up the alley. And the neighbors were out upstairs on their
they were
porch,
on the
and so
balcony.
we were like we're like in the car, and Andre's like, okay, so this is what we're gonna do. Like, we're gonna get out the car, get your keys out, get it ready. We're gonna get out the car. We're gonna get right into the apartment. We're gonna close the door. We're gonna lock it, and we're gonna, take care of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay. We get out the car, and the neighbor says, "Did your friend have a gun?"
I remember that.
And I said, and I mean, it's funny now, but at the time I was like, our friend? No, he just tried to rob us. There was an armed robbery that literally just happened.
Yes.
So she, I guess she said she saw him get into a car at the
end of the alley.
At the end of the alley, and they took off or whatever. So we got out of the car. We ran in. We kind of got into the house. I was fumbling, dropping my keys, couldn't get the key. I was shaking like a leaf.
It makes sense.
We finally got inside the apartment. Now, mind you, our apartment, I just want to touch up on, our apartment was in Allentown. It was in Center City, Allentown. It was off of Hanover Avenue.
Yes, it was.
If you're familiar with the area, it was by Joker's. I know a lot of people are very familiar with Joker's. It was the bar at the corner.
Oh, okay.
So we were right there off of Hanover Avenue. So if you're familiar with the area, that's where the apartment was. So we get inside, and I call the cops.
Yes, you did.
And
the cops responded quickly.
They did. They responded quickly.
You call the cops. Oh, I'm about to get robbed.
Yeah, I was like, oh,
it's like,
I was crying. I was like, we just got robbed. Oh my God, come and help us. I don't know what I even said.
I don't know what you said. I just know you said, we just got robbed. And as soon as you finished that, as soon as you closed off that statement alone, I heard the sirens.
We could hear sirens. So that's like, it was so quick. The cops were like in the area. We seen them, like we could see them like in the window, like the going back and forth, like all up down. We were on South Carlisle Street, all up and down South Carlisle Street. We could hear them on Hanover Avenue. We could hear them in the street behind us, even up and down the alley. We could hear them everywhere. There was just cop cars everywhere, and they came to the house and. Go ahead.
I'll tell you this part. This part was really good.
Ahead.
This part was interesting.
Yeah, this part was
See,
interesting.
when she called the cops, I felt secure. I'm like, man, for being in the hood, because we're in the hood at that time. I was like, the cops responded quickly. I mean, you didn't finish the statement. There was 1, 2, 3. It was about 4 to 5 cop cars.
Yeah, a lot.
And in less than 2 minutes.
Almost every road had cop cars on it.
In less than 2 minutes, there was a cop at the door saying, I think we might have the suspect. You want to come out and we can take you to view the individual to see if this is the person that tried to rob you?
That was super scary because I had to get in the back of the police car and go up the alley and identify the person because I gave them I remembered, I had photographic memory, so I remembered exactly what the person looked like, and I had to give them that, so they wanted me to go up and identify this person that they... Unfortunately, I felt bad for that person. He wasn't the person, and he unfortunately got, I don't know, arrested or whatever happened because of whatever. But I felt so bad for that whole situation. But I went up and identified him, and it was not the person. It was not the
guy. At this point, they haven't saw me yet. They didn't see me at all because I was inside the house and they were dealing with her directly. And then after they came back with her because she went right out to that, I'm with them to go see this potential suspect, which got arrested, by the way, because I guess he had some form of... something on him that was illegal.
An illegal substance on him. So.
Well, they walk inside the apartment, and as soon as they saw me, they went from being protective to being, I guess, suspicious.
It was
away.
It happened so quickly.
Yes,
like,
it did.
The change in the demeanor went from like, oh, how can we help you to, oh, well, there's the cause. We know what the reason is. It was so quick. It happened so fast. They were like packing up their bags within minutes of seeing Andre.
Well, there was how many cops? I believe, as I recall, it's about 8 or 9 cops that came in the apartment. Which was a lot. And they were talking to you. They were engaging. They're trying to solve the situation, solve this mystery of who this person is that could have robbed you. And as soon as they saw me, they look up and like, you sure you don't know the individual? It's like, no, I don't know this individual. Are you sure? I'm like, I'm sure I don't know the individual. I mean, do you? And then the next question that was asked was, is there any reason why someone would want to rob you? Right. I was like, I don't know of any reason. He's like, have you done anything recently that could have put you in a position where someone wanted to rob you? I was like, no, I haven't. And that was the end of the question to me. They gave me those 3 questions. Didn't ask me how I'm doing. And then within less than 5 minutes of seeing me, they all left, and that was it.
Their demeanor changed so quickly that we kind of like, and this is what made us, I think, a powerhouse as a couple. So even so early on is we were only 8 months into a relationship. All this is happening, and we noticed right away the change in their demeanor, and we kind of looked at each other and we were like, grab everything that we can grab and let's go.
Yes.
Because they're not going to help us.
No.
So get everything that we can get, anything that is important to us, anything, grab clothes and grab stuff, and let's go. We left that day, we left that night before the cops, because we seen how quickly they were starting to pack up and go.
We saw that they lost interest, and
they
weren't going to
help
pursue
us.
anything beyond this point.
Nope.
They're like, well, we have to leave before they leave, so that if this person is anywhere around, they can't come and get us.
Well, and the worst thing, I just called the cops. I mean, anybody who grows up in the hood knows you don't call the cops, and I just did that, and now I have all these cops everywhere who don't even want to actually help us anymore. I mean, they wanted to help us for like the first 20 minutes, and then they saw Andre, talk to him, asked him 3 questions, and kind of tried to make it seem like it was like a drug deal gone bad or something, which was far from the truth.
Yes.
We were just coming home, and when they're asking us these questions, we're like, no, we have no idea why someone would want to rob us. We don't even have anything to be robbed from. Like, literally, we spent our last paycheck getting spices for the apartment. Like, we have no money. Like, we're like kids on our own. Like, what could they have possibly wanted from us? And the cops just kind of like, just the way they made it seem and the way they made it sound, we kind of looked at each other and we were like, grab everything you can, grab everything that's important to you, just in case we don't ever come back.
Oh, just in case, yes.
And we grabbed everything. We went to my mom's house. It was like, by this point, it was probably close to 3 o'clock in the morning, because this happened at around almost midnight, because I got out of work at 11 p.m. So it was almost midnight when this happened. So it was almost like 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe 2:30 in the morning when we got to my mom's house.
By the time we got to her house, yes.
Yeah, to my mom's apartment. And we stayed there with her for the night. And we left after that. We kind of never went back and stayed at the apartment again.
No, we went back to actually, we never went back to the apartment to live. We actually stayed with her mom for about a week. And then we made arrangements to stay with your dad for, I guess, a month until we get another apartment. And then we moved everything out, put into storage, and then moved it to another apartment. We stayed with my dad because we had found the place, but we were fixing it up. So we had just stayed with him for those couple weeks while we were kind of fixing it up, and we paid for a month's rent at the apartment, so we kind of used that as our storage, basically. Yes.
And held our stuff there until we could get back, and then we went down with my dad, and
then transitioned.
And we took everything that we possibly could, and we left, and we moved. And that was it.
Yeah, that was a pretty... That's a pretty, I guess, life-threatening experience, literally.
It was.
And it was terrifying. It was. And I think for me, the toughest emotional part wasn't actually when you're in it, is after everything happened and you get a moment to relax and thought about what could have went wrong in that situation and what did went wrong in that situation. And that's when really everything start come crashing in. And you get a little bit anxious, and then you get upset, you get frustrated, and then you're hurt, then you go through the cycle of that emotion again.
And the crazy thing, like the part that is very like bizarre to me when it comes to trauma and traumatic situations is that when you're going through it, like you don't realize how crazy it is. Like you don't realize how traumatic it really is.
Yes.
It's not until like... It can be days, months, even years later until you realize like how traumatic of a situation you really went through. Like as your mind matures and as you grow up and you start to like look back at some of these situations. I was 18 at the time. I had done some, things as a teenager and as a young adult. So it seemed traumatic, and I had been through some things already that were traumatic at that time. Yes, so it seemed traumatic at the time, but it wasn't until probably in the last year or so that I started looking back and I'm like, no, this was like a huge like moment, a pivotal moment in our lives as we were young. We were only 18 to 20 years old, so we were very young. It was a pivotal moment in our relationship. Our relationship was so young. We were only 8 months into our relationship. It was my first time living without one of my parents. You had lived on your own before, but it was my first time living. I think it was your first time living with a girlfriend, though. It was. So, I mean, it was all like new. Everything was so new. The experiences were new. And we were just doing the best that we could to get by. And here comes this huge blow to our lives, to our situation that disrupted us because we left that night. We never came back except to get our stuff. So our first apartment, like we left abruptly,
Stayed there for 2 months and then that was it.
We were only there for a couple months and then we left abruptly. We moved to a whole nother town. We were like 40 minutes away. We moved to Slatington, so we moved so far away, which that was like a disruption to our lives. It was just a lot of like craziness that kind of happened with, it was already a very crazy and traumatic situation. We had both already been through some crazy and traumatic situations in our life, and now we had to completely like change our life around, completely disrupt our life and try to figure it out, and it wasn't easy.
No, any unplanned changes that disrupt you, that makes you have to do something that you weren't planning on doing or would otherwise would not be doing or be willing to do, it does interrupt your life dramatically and cause a substantial amount of stress, whether it is stress that you are conscious about or subconsciously, because you have to redirect and reach and change so many things that was normal for you, that it becomes very strenuous.
Yeah.
Overall, emotionally becomes strenuous. When it comes to just your physical outlook, it becomes strenuous. When it comes to even your personal relationships and your thoughts, it becomes very, very hectic at that time. And that is kind of the big thing about when it comes to, you're talking about trauma.
Yes.
Is that trauma is something is unplanned for, but we're forced to deal with, clean up the pieces very quickly.
Yes.
And how we go about doing that. And we share that story to just share with you one of the traumatic situations we went through, and just to share with you some of the things that we did in order to cope and actually get through it successfully. Because a lot of people survive the trauma, but they're still on survival mode. They haven't worked through the other side. And I think it's very important not only for us to survive going through the trauma, but afterwards actually get on the other side of it, where we can look back, talk about it, learn from it, grow through it, as well as we go through it, and actually continue to move forward with our lives.
Right.
What would you say, speaking of that, what would you say the most terrifying thing for you in that experience was?
I would say the most terrifying thing for me was the unknown. Like, is he gonna pull the trigger? We don't have anything to give him, and there's a gun to our face. The scariest part wasn't the gun to our faces. It was the fact that we had nothing to bargain our lives with.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? It's one thing if you're in a situation where someone has a gun to your face and you have, say we had our whole rent money in our pocket, like we had inside the apartment. If we had it with us, well, we could have bargained our life with a couple $100 for that we had for our rent, but we didn't have anything to bargain for our lives with. So it was like unknown. Are we gonna die? Is this how we die? And I truly believe that, for me anyway, I will say that I truly believe that we were covered by angels in that moment, because I do know that one of the things that happened is where I worked, after that, I worked with some people who also doubled. They were security officers at this place, but they also doubled as Allentown police officers. And one of the gentlemen responded to the call. He didn't realize that he didn't make the connection with me until a couple months later, and he told me that the gentleman that had robbed us at gunpoint actually went ahead and pulled the trigger in a robbery
about 2 weeks later.
Yeah, about 2 weeks later, a couple weeks later. And he actually did pull the trigger, and he actually did kill somebody. So it's not that it wasn't possible for him to do it, because it 100% was. And we had nothing to offer, so he had all the reason to do it. And we were covered and we were protected. And I'm grateful for that from God. So while that was the scariest part, it was also like kind of the part that I'm most thankful with God is like we didn't have anything, but like also we were somehow protected in that moment.
Yes.
What would you say it was for you?
It'd be the same principle, the not having control.
Yeah.
I believe not understanding the outcome or having control in order to persuade the outcome to what I was hoping it would be. That was the most terrifying thing. And it's twofold for me, because in the situation, I was hoping to have something in order to bargain with him with. I wasn't going to be aggressive. I wasn't going to be not compliant to what he wanted. I wanted to be able to have something of value in order to trade him for the most valuable thing to me when it comes to your life and my life. At that moment, I didn't have anything, so that was traumatizing, because I'm hopeless. I felt helpless in a situation that seemingly seemed hopeless at the time. Yes. So for me, that was that part. And the second part for me was, which I believe even hit me deeper than even the first part, ironically, was when the police came and they were taking care of the situation, and I saw the look in their faces when they interacted with me as if they lost all interest. Yeah. In that situation. So now I had no control. And for me, what it comes down to, the difference between the police officers and the criminal is that I know that the criminal has no obligation to be better. Now, we all have people as people in a society, will hope that people do better, but they're not obligated to do better by our standards.
Right.
But I did have an expectation that the police officers have a personal commitment and obligation to protect and to serve. And when I realized that they weren't going to protect or serve us when it comes down to handling the situation correctly, as soon as they noticed me, that situation became another thing that bothered me completely. Because in a situation, I had no control and I had no security. And I believe the word for me was security. There wasn't any security for me. At the time, my relationship with God wasn't that great.
No.
So I'm grateful that God protected me before I know that he was protecting me.
Yes.
See, now in the situation, because I have a relationship with God, I would know that I wouldn't have to lean on the security of my actions and the decisions of men in order to be secured. I lean on God. At the time, I wasn't aware of that.
Right.
So in the moment, I felt so helpless, not being able to find any form of security anywhere, and that was terrifying.
Yeah, there was no protection anywhere. Like, we literally just had to flee for our lives. We're like, okay, nobody's going to help us in this situation. There's not going to be any repercussions. And clearly, they just completely lost all interest in even trying to find this person. So, at this point, we're like, we have to flee.
Well, yes. They never called us back to tell us what happened with the guy. So.
I'm going to be honest with you. It's so bizarre because I like looked up things. I was trying to look up like news stories like about this or like something I could find about it, because it really, I mean, it wasn't that dramatically long ago. Like some of the traumatic experiences that happened when I was a teenager, that I understand, that was like the early 2000s, but this just happened like in 2008 or 2009. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, we'll be able to find that. I can't find anything. There's like not even like an archived anything on it. And it's bizarre to me. Like I'm sure I could write and get a copy of the police report if even that exists. But it's like to me, it almost looks like it never happened.
Well, yes.
Which means there was no follow-up. There's nothing done with it.
It wasn't a follow-up.
No.
I believe that. I'm not sure exactly how that process worked, but I had an expectation there would be a follow-up if anything else happened that is connected to our case. But they never reached out to us after that. But I believe what you guys really want to know is, what are the steps to go through the trauma?
Yes.
What are the appropriate steps? That we all have our things that we go through, and we all have our disappointments. We have our traumatic situations that interrupt our lives dramatically, and then we're forced to pick up the pieces. But how do we pick up the pieces as individuals? At the moment where I feel like everything has fell apart, we're emotionally a wreck right now, and we can't even gather our thoughts. We're either frantic, frustrated, angry, sad, all at the same time, trying to navigate through our emotions. What are the appropriate steps in order to start to move forward in the situation? What do you say your first step was?
I would say my first step, realistically, obviously I want to say my first step was that I found God, but that isn't the truth.
Not at that time, no.
No, not in that time, because we weren't there. So that is what I would say now. But what happened in that moment was, my next step was for me personally, was to remove myself from the situation.
There you go, that's number one. Yes, that's a good one.
And to protect myself and to protect my energy. And what I mean by that is to not have allowed what happened to us consume me, but allow it to help propel me to move forward.
Yes.
So I decided, okay, if we're losing our first apartment, then what did we decide together? Okay, if we're losing our first apartment, then we're buying our first house.
Yes.
And that's exactly what we did.
Yes.
And so it was only a year and a half, not even a year into our relationship, because it was only just like a month or two later, and we bought our first house. And so we were like, we're going to take this as not a weight to hold us down, but as a stepping stone to help propel us forward. And that's exactly what we did with it.
Yes, and I would agree with you that the first step is to step out of the situation the best you can, out of the danger of the situation, and step into a presence where you have people that can support you. They may not know what to say and how to say it, but they have your best interest, and they can help be your security when you feel insecure emotionally and psychologically at the time. And then the second step is to start focusing on how you can utilize this traumatic situation in order to push you forward rather than to hold you back, by not allowing it to consume you or define you, but to use it as a stepping stool to say, well, I've seen what went wrong here. How can I learn from any mistakes I've made, any mistake anyone else have made, learn from certain situations. Like indirectly, I learned as this is a bad thing, that I can't just call the cops. And they won't just jump to my aid right away. I learned that when I'm pulling up to anywhere, if we're arguing and we're bickering, if it's late at night, if it's an alley of some sort, always be vigilant of your environment. The argument is important, but the bickering is important at a time, but not more important in our lives. Mm-hmm. So we have to be more vigilant and make sure that we're paying attention to our areas. And make sure when we're going to start to argue, we go to a place that is safe, secure in order to argue. Mm-hmm. Or bicker.
Yeah. Well, and I think because you can make conscious decisions for that, yeah.
So you start to plan. One of the things that I've learned to do in those situations, and I think is very crucial as a tool, is that I try to work on not panicking, but planning. So I start to find my comfort in planning my next step rather than panicking about what just happened that I can't control. I couldn't control that, so what is the plan in order to get out of this and secure myself so this won't be a problem anymore in the future? Mm-hmm. And start to work towards that. Now, that transition for some people may be 5 minutes, maybe 5 years, but that should be the focus, how to transition.
Right, the foundation, yeah.
Yes, how to transition from the panic into the planning and how to plan forward.
Yeah.
And see the problem, take the problem and convert it into a purpose for change or improvement rather than something that to define us and pull us back as individuals.
Yeah, I agree. And know that it's okay for you to have trauma responses to trauma. For example, like one thing that I still do, it's been 12 years.
Yes.
And I still won't sit in the car without the doors locked.
Yes.
The doors are never unlocked when I'm in the car. It's just a trauma response. You're not going to pull my door open ever again. It's just not ever going to happen. Like, it's just not.
Unless you're the Hulk, you pull the door right off the hinge.
Yeah, unless you rip the door right off the hinges, you're not just going to all willy-nilly open my door. And it's a trauma response, but it's something that makes me feel protected. It makes me feel a little safer. It makes me feel a little more vigilant. Yes. I'm more aware of my surroundings. And that was a thing that already existed for me because of past trauma, but just, and the photographic memory also was a trigger from past trauma, which actually helped in this moment because I was able to identify the person right away. But these things, it's okay. I want people to not look at trauma responses as almost like a negative thing. Like, yeah, there are quirks about you now where you like maybe do things a certain type of way or you do things a little bit differently than people are used to, but it's what is your comfort and it's what makes you feel safe. And if that's what you need to do, and that's how you feel like you're protecting yourself, then I don't want you to think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing to lock my doors every time I get in the car. No. I think it's a safe thing.
I agree with you. I believe if we look at it from this perspective, there's businesses that pay people to test your security system to see where there's any way it can be bridged or it can be you can override it, or any weaknesses in their security system. This way they can be aware of it so they can fix it. Now the situation wasn't a controlled situation, but if we have to deal with it anyways, I believe a good information you could take from it is to see where were there weaknesses in your security system in order to protect yourself in that moment the best you can. Not everything you protect yourself about or in. But when you see it, you can be like, well, moving forward, I learned not to do this, not to position myself this way, to lock my car door, to be aware of my surroundings when I pull into an alley. If I'm I woke up on the wrong side of bed, I'm in a bad mood, and I tend to want to get into my feelings. My feelings is fine, and I can work through them, but I won't let that govern how I approach things in terms of what I'm focused on, because my environment and my life is more important. Yes. So there's things you can gather from your trauma that can help you to be more empowered moving forward.
Yes. I don't want it to be looked at as something that is holding you back. I want it to be looked at as like something that you can use to help propel you forward.
Yes, I agree.
You can use your experiences and what you've been through to say, okay, I understand where you're coming from. Maybe I don't understand directly. Maybe the trauma wasn't exactly the exact same and we didn't experience it the exact same because we're different. Like we talked about in the service this morning, we are all different. We're all unique. So we're not going to experience it the same. But to say, hey, I've experienced trauma, you've experienced trauma, maybe we can come together and help each other get on the other side of the trauma, whatever it is. So that, I think, is the biggest and most important thing. It's why we do what we do.
Yes.
And we don't ever, like, for example, when it comes to our services, we don't ever charge for anything that we do because life has beat us up. Life has put us through the ringer. We have been through things, and we realize that these things happen to people, and you don't always have access to resources, but you can always have access to God, and
Yes.
God is the one that sustained us through everything. And
Yes.
God, even when we didn't have a relationship with him yet, because it wasn't until years later that we started going to church.
2 years.
Yeah, it was, years later that we started going back to church. I mean, we both had a foundation with God, but we started going back and actually rebuilding that relationship with God and getting that structure back with God. But he still protected us.
Yes, he
and
did.
he still covered us, and he still made sure we were okay. And so we feel now indebted to society in a way to do that for the next person that we see. If we see that you need help, if we see that you need guidance, if we see that you need more God in your life, we want to help you get to that point. We want to help you find that, and we want to help you in a lot of cases, we want to help you overcome trauma. We want to help you overcome sickness, overcome sin, overcome whatever you're facing or whatever you're dealing with in life, whether it's in your control or not. We want to help you.
Of course, yes. I completely agree. I mean, we weren't mature enough to realize that God was still covering us, even though we weren't committed to him. He was still committed to us to protect us through that storm. So looking back now, we know in a mature stage that God was covering us that night. It wasn't anything else. And he allowed us to be able to work through it and actually reveal to us how to take the appropriate steps along the way. And one of the things that we're very big on is helping other people.
Yes.
It said that hurt people hurt people. And I believe that blessed people bless other people. Yes. And I believe that hurt people can become blessed people because we're hurt so many times that we're in a position where we realize that as we're starting to grow and work through these things, it was nothing but the blessing of God that helped us. Yeah. So we realize that during the storms, and despite the struggle, despite what's come our way, that we're blessed. So why not bless other people with what God has shown us? We become a light to share with someone else. Jesus gave it to us for free. God gave us the opportunity for free. So why are we charging people for it?
Right.
We don't need to.
No.
Now, there's things that you charge people for, right. But I believe when it comes to those life experiences and those principles along the way that can really help an individual go from death to life. When it comes to your psychological, emotional, and spiritual state, which also affects your physical body and life at the same time. This is something that out of love we should definitely do, because the Bible says, "Oh man, don't owe anyone nothing except the debt of love." That I only owe you love, and love say that I care about your well-being. That if I see where there's a problem and I can provide a solution, it's not something that someone has to probe me to do. It's not something you have to pay me to do. Nope. It's not something that I feel as if I have to do for my personal benefit, but it's something I willfully give in order to make you whole. And I believe that is the thinking that we need to have as God's people, as brothers and sisters, in order to move to the next level.
I couldn't agree more.
And that's what love really should do. Not just saying it, but actually living it.
Yes.
That means that I've been through some stuff, you've been through some stuff. I'm not going to judge you for your shortcomings, but I will help to instruct you to move in a better direction. I see that you're hurting, I can provide some solution. I see that you're confused, I can provide some information. I'll willfully provide it because I care enough, because I want you to see you at your best.
Yes.
It's not good enough for you to be okay. If I can make you your best naturally, that's instinctively what I want to do. And I believe that's what God called us to do. Yeah. And that is our goal here, is to help people work through a lot of their issues and their situations that they're going through. Because we all have it.
Yes. Yes. And then today's video was to just give you a little bit of insight into our life together, as a couple, and just some of the things that we've been through. One of the many things that we've been through.
There's a lot of them.
There's a lot of them, but this was, one of the big traumatic things that happened in the start of our relationship. So I thought it was important to talk about today and to share. There's healing in talking about your problems.
Yes,
there is. There's healing in journaling your problems. There's healing in bringing your problems to God. So I am going to recommend all three of those things, to talk about your trauma, the things that you've been through, discuss it, use it to help other people. Don't let it shame you. Don't let it, define you. Use it to help other people. Use it as a stepping stone. Step on it to get to elevation. Journal about your issues, and then also bring them to God. All very valuable. Very,
of
very
course.
valuable.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that. The only thing I would add to that is that we need to share not only our successes and our experiences, but even our shortcomings and our traumatic situations, especially because we have to get it off our chest.
Yes.
But just be very mindful of who you share it with.
Right.
Make sure you go to people who have your best interests at hand.
Yes.
And will be in a position, they may not be able to help you at the time, but it will help you as much as they can until you can get to someone who can provide some solution to your problem. And that is very important along the way.
I completely agree.
I mean, I know it's getting a little bit late, so I don't know if we want to close in and continue it maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about we'll talk about more trauma things as the time goes on. But we'll wrap up here. I want to say that if you missed today's live service, please go back and watch it because it was so good. It was like literally, especially since we're talking about trauma and stuff, it was such a good service and a good word from God through Pastor Andre that talks about our uniqueness and talks about being light inside of darkness and being salt on the earth, and it's just valuable information that will definitely help you find that uniqueness inside of you and stop defining yourself by what you went through and start defining yourself by who you really are,
who God said
you really are. So definitely go back and check that out. Females and ladies, I'm gonna throw this out there for you guys. I'm having the virtual girls' night in. That's going to be in a little less than 2 weeks. It's March 12th at 7 p.m. It's a Friday, and I'm going to have the registration is on my page if you are friends with me or on my Instagram. And I'm also going to have the Zoom link available so you can join right on. And I hope to see you guys there because we're going to be healing from some of these trauma things that we've been through. We're going to be talking about how to refill, how to refill, how to heal, how to encourage, how to inspire. And it's going to be a group of powerhouse women, leaders in their communities who are coming together to do this. So I hope to see you there.
Yes, definitely. You should definitely take the time of day to treat yourself to come in and actually seeing what her workshop is all about. It's about helping other women who have been through some stuff become even better. Come and see myself as God lead us when it comes to Sunday. It's dedicated to helping our brothers and sisters become better and connecting to the Creator the right way, not only on a spiritual level, but how to take that spiritual level and turn to something literal and tangible that you can utilize each and every day as we approach situations and we deal with our circumstances.
I completely agree. And if you are interested, if you've been through a trauma or a traumatic situation and you need to talk about it and you're interested in setting up some sort of counseling services, feel free to go right on the A.R. Thompson Facebook page. Yes. I believe there's a calendar and a place right on there to schedule a phone or via Zoom if you prefer, I guess, video chat. But a lot of them are done through phone calls right now. Counseling sessions. I know you do a lot of weekly ones with different people. Yeah. So if that's something you want to set up and you want to start working through or talking through some of these issues and seeing how you can come out on the other side better, then definitely go and check that out as well on the page and set up an appointment. Your schedule's up there. So it is. Yeah.
It's definitely up there. So feel free to go ahead. You can also schedule an appointment in order to speak with us or myself at
both of us or just him.
Yes, at arthompson.org also, our website. And if you want to get some more information on tools that you can utilize even before you speak with us, it's on that website also.
Yes.
So please feel free to use all that information, reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to help you and assist you the best way we know how as God allows it. All right.
Amen.
It was nice having you guys with us. Please share your comments, your concerns. We'll definitely get back with you as soon as possible. And we'll see you next time with Talking with the Thompsons.
Yay. Bye, everyone. Mwah, mwah.